Dun, 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 dun.
We were a little up with that. These are the new lyrics now.
All right. Welcome to the last of our, I guess, actual movie reviews of Rocktober in November with Creed 2, a movie that, dang it, Tony, a movie that just came out in the theater this past week for the Thanksgiving holiday, much like I believe its predecessor back in 2015 was around the same time. Yeah, I'm Joe.
I'm Ashley.
We're Geek to My Nerd, as you probably assume with our title channel and all that crap that we have. Everything going on. We've been doing this for 2 months now. I'm so tired.
Tired.
It's okay. It's okay. But we have reached the end, the mountaintop of our perpetual punchy machine. Tom Zambino's with us in the chat. He wants us to shed a tear for the end of Rocktober. There's a little more coming, but we'll talk about that at the very end.
Yeah.
So what say you that we jump right into this fight?
All right.
With... Just go ahead and...
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know what you're doing.
Dang it. There we go.
We're so professional.
Woo!
All right, so like we've always done, we're going to have a little overview, and then the rest of the show is skewed a bit because this is not...
We're not reviewing already existing movies. We are reviewing a movie currently in the theater.
So we're going to do gripes and likes, most important scenes and themes, which are, rehashes of things we've done before.
Yeah.
And then instead of, awards and accolades, we're going to talk about awards potential. And so some of the other little accolade data we've roped into the overview. So all the same info, just in a slightly different order. All right, shall we get started?
Let's get started. Ding, ding. Round one. Overview.
All right, so this was released on November 21st of this year. Change in director, no longer Ryan Coogler. Now it's Stephen Caple Jr., but I believe that Coogler selected him to direct this because Stallone didn't want to direct. Stallone did write the screenplay along with Jewel Taylor, and then there's some other people that have story credits. The budget loomed to another $25 million. So it was at $35 million for the first, and now this one's a $50 million budget.
So it's a $15 million jump.
Sorry, it was 15, so
it's cool.
I can't add.
There's a lot of numbers here. It gets exhausting.
And then...
Opening weekend.
Yeah,
so far.
Yeah, so these are the so far prediction numbers. These will be finalized tomorrow because, they can't 100% predict everything, and then the numbers will be a little less round.
Well, there's like, 4 more showings in any given theater at this point?
Yeah, and then I pulled these like in mid-afternoon. But anyway, so 35, and I have double dollar signs. Darn it. Oh, well. 35
million double dollars.
Yeah, 35 million for the opening weekend. So that just counts the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then the box office, which counts the actual release date because it got an early release, is at $55 million.
Which is nice that the box office has already overlapped the cost to make it.
Yeah, it's been a while since a Rocky movie has recouped its budget in the opening weekend, so that's pretty good.
Moment to show some love for that poster. It's a pretty hardcore poster.
Yeah, I liked that one the best.
All right.
All right, and then this is the highest opening weekend unadjusted for inflation for a movie in the Rocky franchise. And then when we do adjust for inflation, it's the third highest behind... I believe Rocky 4 and I think Rocky 5 still hold the highest because, inflation works weird. If anybody wants to see that chart, I can make it up pretty later and show you, but I don't have it pretty yet. I just have it in the raw Excel file. And I had to adjust that inflation by hand because they don't have an opening weekend inflation chart on Box Office Mojo, so I had to do math today.
Come on, Box Office Mojo.
They had like the whole gross for the movie, but that wouldn't be a fair adjustment because it was to make Creed look exceptionally bad because it's only been open for a few days. Anyway, tomato meter 82% critic score, so this is down from the first film, which had 95% from critics, and then the audience score, it remains the same, 89%.
Nice.
And then cinema score A in the last movie got an A as well.
Nice.
So, doing pretty well, pretty favorable in the eyes of audiences and critics.
Round 2, gripes. Take a moment to check in with the chat, though. So Tom Zambino says 35 million sounds about right, which is a shame because the nature of the beast is stepping up to a family juggernaut, which is true, especially this time of year. If there's a family movie, that's going to get a little more attention.
Yeah, and I don't remember if I mentioned this. Yeah, it was opening at second place. I don't remember if that was on there.
Was Wreck-It Ralph number 1?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Wreck-It Ralph is number 1.
It's quite unfortunate it got wrecked this weekend. And then also, inflation works weird, and back in the Rocky and Rocky 2 times, releases were a bit different, rolled out slowly and such. Yeah, but I think that a lot of that has to do with the nature of how film was back then. So anyway, back to round 2, gripes. Ding, ding.
All right, so one of the first gripes comes from early in the movie. I just felt this fight between Creed and Wheeler felt very
stilted
and anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Which I guess is supposed to kind of help set up Creed's mindset that he doesn't really feel like the champion. But like I don't know, it just felt very basic. Like they didn't do any like cool stylistic things with it.
Yeah.
Like they did in the last movie. Like we kind of get to see like his entrance. But it just felt very lackluster for like a start of the movie fight.
Yep.
And usually when they do like a start of the movie fight in, these franchises, there's like a little more epicness to it, even if it's something ridiculous like, Thunder, what's his face?
Thunderlips.
Yeah, Thunderlips and Rocky 3. And so, yeah, it's kind of like Creed 2 is a combination of elements of Rocky 2 through 5.
Yeah. And I'm going to be completely honest, I completely forgot Wheeler was the guy that decked him in the first one that just like floored him. I completely forgot that.
Yeah, the most memorable thing about this fight for me is Creed talking about where's my keys, because he wants his Mustang back.
Yeah, which is cool. I like that. And the most memorable part of this fight is before the fight, which we talked about in our likes.
Yes.
But yeah, the fact that this is the guy that he lost his car to in the first one, that's the part that I'm like, okay, that's cool. What's next? Yeah,
and then like of course all like the sports commentators also talk about like, oh well, he fought him too late, so it just felt very lame.
Yep.
All right, and then this is more of a gripe because like in the trailer, this is cool. Like that first trailer where it's like, oh man, who beat up Creed? Like I wonder what's happening. Oh man, there's Rocky. He's afraid for Creed. I wonder who it could be. And then you see this dude walking around, and if you look on the ground, it's like, oh, that's in Cyrillic alphabet. And then it confirms it when it does like the little turnaround like Drago. And it's like, oh man, Ivan Drago had a kid. Now they're going to fight.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's like, we already know this. And so it's like, why did they leave the cut reveal this way in the movie? Because it doesn't do anything. You've already known he's Drago the whole time.
Yeah.
So it just is kind of like a little lame move.
I think this is the same font they used for his like name in the first one, or not the first one, but in Rocky 4. But I'm not sure. I think that's the only. If that's what it is, then that's the only thing about it that's like, oh, that's cool.
But yeah, just like he just spins around, Drago. It's like, okay, but we already know his name is Drago because we're watching.
This is like 45 minutes in.
Yeah, this is the last fight in the movie. We know who it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just. Yeah, cool for the trailer, but some things can stay in the trailer. Not everything has to be in the movie. Like that's what trailers are for. Like you don't want to use up all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So it just kind of bothered me that they kept a little spinning reveal. That's what it's officially called, the spinning reveal.
The spinning reveal. I get it.
And then Victor himself, like I felt like in the actor's mind there was more going on with the character because we watched some interviews with him.
Yeah.
But like none of that is really conveyed very well on screen about like how he is trying to impress his father.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because the nature of the Dragos is they're the silent type.
Yeah.
But I felt like they needed to have at least maybe one more scene where we could really get that he was trying to...
The motivation. Because it's the thing, like in Rocky 4, the fact that we don't know Drago's motivation for like 95% of the movie is fine because they don't try to tell us that there's actually motivation there. But in this, they drop little breadcrumbs and hints that like, yeah, there's something more going on here. It's not just for glory or just for this, but they leave it up. The reason it's frustrating is because we don't know. Of course, there's cultural differences and things like that, Russian, American, and things like that. So we can assume based on body language and facial gestures and that unspoken stuff, but we could be completely wrong about what's supposed to be going on because we don't know the cultural differences and such. So a little more clue in would be really, really cool.
Yeah, and I like the character. I think this is probably one of the more compelling antagonists that we've had in a while, and quite a villainous one for this movie. But just like a few more scenes, maybe even one more scene to kind of really get that he's vying for like the love of his father, because that's what the actor feels. But maybe there's some cutting room floor things that convey this a little better.
Yeah, it's like I didn't care about Pretty Ricky, but I do care about Victor, which is why it's a shame that he doesn't get more characterization. We know Ricky's motivation pretty plainly from the beginning of Creed, and we don't know his as well. Yeah, it's not as clear. It would be nice.
All right, and then like, where did they find this random place to train in the middle of the desert?
So this was like one of my big ones as well. Like I had an issue, you had an issue with it, I had an issue with it, but like for me, it's like the part of the thing with all the Rocky training montages is where the training takes place and all that stuff matters. Like, it's not just that, like, oh, it's intense training for Rocky or Creed or whoever, but the location is important for the scope of what's going on. Like, as dumb as Rocky IV could have been from time to time, the big training montage that happened in Rocky IV happened in Russia, which is and it showed Rocky being, you know, more like warm and human and things like that, as opposed to Drago's machinery. And this one, it's just like, where's this place? I don't even like.
Yeah, so like one dude's training in the desert, and then another dude's training with his dad. Okay.
Yeah, like I don't care.
Yeah, because in all the other movies, it's like he's either training at Mix or like at Apollo's gym
or this new gym that like, because that, like, I think if they trained at Delphi, it would have been a little more impactful. Now, this is a really cool set piece. It's pretty.
Yeah, there were some scary people here.
Yeah. The dude he trained with that was like covered in tats was a pretty cool.
Yeah, because it is important. He wasn't going to outbox Drago with skill. He had to be able to take the brute force of the train wrecks that are the two fists of Drago. So, yeah, like, I get why. It's just, I don't know. It wasn't a very compelling set piece.
Yep.
And then when he's like running after the car and like passes out, it's like, Rocky, he's probably got a heat stroke. You should probably check on him.
Yeah. He can keep running. Just give him some freaking water, man.
Come on, get up. All right, and then now that I mind that we don't have the Star-Spangled Trunks and instead we have more of like a black and chrome or like black and white edition, but like they don't ever explain why he switched the colors, and I just needed an explanation.
And it wouldn't be such a need for an explanation if they didn't make the trunks such a big deal in the first one. Like, that was a big deal that he wore his father's trunks, or at least a similar style to his father's trunks. But now it's like, nah, they don't matter. And I don't know, it's little things like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be like a symbolic turn where it's like, okay, like we're not playing anymore, now we're getting real tough or something.
I think it's supposed to be this is his version of the legacy. Like, he is still a Creed. He's still wearing the stars and stripes, but it's not the showy that he's hard now. He's not like the showman and stuff. This was a good fight, though.
Oh, yeah. Just just even like a one line or something. I don't know. Just something a little extra.
Yeah.
So that we get like the deeper meaning behind it.
Yep.
And then where are the kids?
Yeah, we're still gonna like harp on this. Where are the rest of the
Creed children? Family? Yeah, where are the rest of the Creeds?
The other two Creeds, his half siblings.
Yeah, did Mary Ann forget that she had two older children who were practically grown by the time she took in?
I mean, if we can actually have Robert show up in this movie, where are the other two? Where are his siblings? Why are they not concerned that he's getting the crap beat out of them?
Yeah, where are they?
So,
are there any other like little nieces and nephews that we could meet? Come on, like, big family reunion. Rocky would love that.
Yeah. Is that it for? Okay.
Yeah, that's it for that.
Time to check in with the chat. Tom said some stuff in here while we were going through stuff. He agrees. Tom agrees. He thinks it's the same font they use for Drago in 4, which that's the only thing. But again, I guess it's supposed to be like an Easter egg style thing, and that would be the only thing. But they could have found a more subtle way to do it, instead of literally just throwing the word in our face on the back of his thing. I think we got a solid idea that he's trying to impress his father through that climactic fight. I don't know if it's so much impress as it's a earning the father's love situation. Like, abusive relationships are really, really hard, especially for the abused because they're the abused. But especially if they are still in the situation where they want the affection from the abuser, it is a difficult situation. And I think that's kind of what it is there. But again, since they're, Russian, I'd like a little more clarification and make sure I'm not incorrect on what I'm assuming. I hate being wrong about something that it seems so simple.
Oh.
Do you like that most of his speaking lines are in Russian? I don't know, but I'm guessing their English isn't that great. Well, Dolph Lundgren is Swedish or Swiss? Swedish?
He's Swedish.
Swedish. And I don't remember where the guy who played Victor is from, but I don't think he's Russian.
Yeah, either. No, they can speak English fairly well, both of them.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a stylistic choice. Maybe the characters don't speak English very well.
And yeah, and I do like that as well. That's nice that they don't 80s movie us with like whenever the two foreign characters are talking, they're talking in English
with a bad Russian accent.
Yeah, right. It's a back to basic styles desert training facility. It's like an urban legend style training arena. Yeah, and I get that. They told us so much. Like, this is where people go to reboot or restart. And I get that, but like there's no emotional core to that training. Like, that's what bothers me.
Yeah, if little Duke had said, like, this is where your dad came after, like, he had, like, a bad time or something. I don't know. Just something to bring in that emotional piece.
It could have been where Apollo went to train before fighting Drago, which would have been, like, a cool thing.
Mean, at the dance studio?
Yeah, right. That would have been really cool. And to be fair, the explanation was throughout the movie, he was trying to build his own legacy. And yeah, I get that, but they made such a huge point of the trunks in the first one with having both Creed and Johnson on the trunks. And that was him supposed to be like, you can still be a Creed, but build your own legacy. It's fine. If they made a point of doing something along those lines, because these Rocky movies are wildly formulaic. Like and I don't mean that in a bad way. They're like, okay, this is the training montage time. This is the time before the fight time. This is the turnaround moment.
We're gonna lose the first fight in this movie, but then in the second one you'll win.
And something along the lines of like, oh, what about the Stars and Stripes? And Rocky could have like the trunks could have been a gift from Rocky.
Yeah.
And like, well, what about my dad's trunks? He's like, this is your fight, not his. Like something like that would have been, just a step, or from Bianca or whoever. It would have been nice because it's like that is a big deal. The concept of these trunks or the style that they go into, because it may be a boxing movie, but Rocky's not really that much about boxing. It's about the style and the story and the heart and everything else. Randall's joined us. Welcome, Randall. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, I think that's us checking in with the chat. We ready to move on to the next round?
Yeah, and then all those gripes. So those are all very minor things.
They are.
Because this movie's really good.
It is really good. So we should say that when we look for gripes, it's really just because like we don't want to be like, this movie's perfect.
Yeah, well, those are all legitimate gripes that we have, but it's not like, oh man, movie ruined.
No, definitely not. Round 3, likes.
And normally we would have way more pictures for this, but with it being a movie currently in theaters,
it's difficult to find stuff.
Basically you have access to trailers.
Yep.
And that's about it to pull from. All right, so this little moment before Creed goes to fight Wheeler, and like Bianca like looks at the crowd and she knows he got this, and then she signs to him basically asking if he has taken a restroom break because
took a dump.
Yeah,
that was a thing in the first one.
Yeah, he's got to go, and he said that he had, so that was like a cute little moment, but also like to let you know that she can, has learned more sign language and he can understand it because of her condition where her hearing, her hearing will deteriorate. So like that's really cool. Like shows off the bond that they have, and their relationship and chemistry is wonderful throughout the movie, even when they're going through like their rough patches because of his issues with losing that first fight to Drago.
Yep.
It's very good. I love their relationship. I also love the moment when they have dinner with his mom.
Yep.
And his mom is like, oh, we got something to tell you. Like, oh, well, honey, I already know.
Yeah, because they're going to tell his mom that,
he's going to fight Drago.
And she's like, I know you're pregnant. And they're just like,
and she starts listing off all these symptoms. And then, like, Bianca's taking a little glass of wine and just spits it back out.
Yep. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so a great rapport between among all of them. I really love that we had this cold open with, we're like, okay, whose house is this? Oh, we start seeing some newspapers and such, and like with Drago, and like it's, we see like the picture of his wife. So like, oh, like maybe she died or something.
Yep.
His son's sleeping on the couch. Like, oh, like these dudes are destitute. They don't, if your son is sleeping on the couch, that's not a good situation.
Nope.
And so it kind of gives us all this great characterization without having to say anything, because not that everything has to be spelled out. But I don't want to imply that from some of the gripes from earlier.
Right. Some of it should have been a little more spoken, but this is really good shorthand for the situation.
Mm-hmm. And then I love the color choices where it's kind of a washed out color, and they're currently in the Ukraine because they can't go home because of the whole fight with Rocky.
Yep.
Drago has been disgraced, and then we learn some more stuff about that later with the fact that like his wife, she's not dead, she left him and left their son who apparently existed. I'm guessing that he was born after the fight.
Yep.
Kind of a situation, and just like so sad for the both of them. Really makes you feel for both of them actually, but Drago definitely not treating his son very well, very abusive.
But he's probably from a place of like, this is what I have to do to make you win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not like that should be the only thing he focuses
and then the way he was treated, sometimes parents don't learn that you don't have to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Break the cycle.
So he's just probably doing what was done to him, and Dolph Lundgren is kind of took a lot of his like own childhood with his father, who was very abusive towards him, and kind of brought that out in this character. So it was a very personal performance for him.
Yep.
And you can definitely tell that his whole heart was in it. And then, like, this moment was interesting. Like, they go look at the Rocky statue, and you know that he is just so disgusted. And then this is at the top of the famous steps, and he just looks so smug looking out at the whole world.
This will be mine soon.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a different take on the whole stair-step run, which I thought was interesting, because it'd be weird for, like, Creed and Rocky to, like, go, we're back up the steps, look over here.
Yeah.
Because it did that in the last movie.
They did that at the end of Creed, and that was a perfect ending for that movie. But it's nice that this whole thing is featured, but it's not. I'm glad it's not like the focal point. Like I was kind of scared that there'd be like a Rocky V style fist fight at the top of the stairs.
That would have been messed
That's
up.
like a bad '80s action movie.
Or like after the boxing match at the end of the movie,
all four go up
in
there
the restaurant.
And just like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I didn't hear no bell. But this is kind of just an interesting take on the whole stair-step legacy, which I'm assuming that is very famous in Rocky's world.
Yeah.
That this is probably something that they talk about when they talk about Rocky, and that's why Drago knows this location, because otherwise, how would he know? When
they're walking up, like there's people in the background that are running up the stairs, and when they're done, they do the arms in the air thing too. And so it's really interesting to see, and especially Victor's responses to all this, because when he sees the statue, he Ivan just stares at it for a while, but Victor kind of looks at him like, man, I hope my dad's not going to go punch that statue.
Don't punch statues.
So this was an interesting situation that I know I personally loved, but we were both like in the first fight against Victor, like why, like he just comes out to some song. Why is it not one of her songs or something like that? And then for the second one, literally comes out singing and swinging. And I love like Rocky's got this little cocky look on his face, and it's just like, this is a really good. This whole final fight was phenomenal. Yeah,
this is way better than the fire breather guy.
Oh god,
in the Conlon fight.
And this is like a really good version of something like showing off, because it's not overly showy, but it is showing like, nah man, I'm confident, I'm gonna have my own entry, we're gonna do this, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
On your territory, but on our terms, kind of a situation. And then, yeah, not like the whole living in America, dancing around.
He may be, you know, his father's son to an extent, but he is not his father's son in that regard.
No. And then, of course, we talked about Marianne earlier. Felicia Rashad, phenomenal in what little she has in this movie, especially when Apollo does tell her about, like, oh, I'm going to fight him. I have to do it.
He said Apollo.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. They're both A names.
Yes.
They're both Greek.
Yes.
So.
And they do look a little alike, you know, if you were to compare them. They favor each other. When he gets all like, I gotta fight him, I gotta avenge my dad's death, she's like, don't you make this about your father. And it's so great. This is definitely a good addition to this franchise.
Yep. I do like that line. They use it in the trailer heavily, and it's very impactful. It's like, if you want to fight, that's your business, but don't pretend this is about him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also interesting shorthand to tell us that, like, he's still not done figuring out what it means to be his father's son, and it's in the same profession and all that jazz. So it's really nice. But yeah, she's phenomenal.
And then their little baby.
Yep.
So yeah, this is where like kind of the Rocky 2 elements come in, where, you know, like, oh, surprise, we weren't expecting this, but we're very happy that we have this little baby. And of course, she inherited Bianca's condition, but she has no hearing response. And there's a really sweet scene between Rocky and Adonis about, like, well, are you gonna love her? And I'm like, of course. And
then what's it matter?
Yeah, then what's it matter if she can't hear? And, you know, like, there's like help that, you know, they can get. So I thought that was a sweet thing, because like, there are tons of children out in the world that have like various conditions, and so to kind of just, you know, where the parents are like supportive and gonna help their kid, versus like, oh, well, let's just, you know, ignore it or worse. And then there wasn't as many stylistic turns in this movie as Coogler's Creed, but there was like some really cool point of view shots, like especially in that first Drago fight, where like you really feel like you're getting punched by him.
Yep.
It makes it very visceral, and then like this point of view with the flashlight to, you know, make sure that he's okay when he gets knocked out in that illegal maneuver, and then the fight, Drago is disqualified. So that was pretty cool. And then we do get to see like a lot of newscasts. I screenshot this like at the perfect moment where this newscaster looks crazy. She's not really, though.
No, it's just this ideal mid statement.
And then so there wasn't like as much of like the news pundits and whatnot in this. And then there was like one moment where it was kind of like a documentary moment of Adonis talking about like, you know, what his legacy will be, but it just didn't feel quite as impactful as like all of the little stylistic turns that Coogler put into the other movie. But I'm sure this director is like, this is the first time that he's directed like a feature film, so he'll grow and learn. Oh,
well, and if this is his first one, that's a really good out of the gate.
Yeah, like this is definitely not bad, but you know, when you go from like the guy that's directed, you know, Black Panther and Fruitvale Station
so definitely,
it's a hard legacy to live up to, which is kind of thematic element in this
considering
movie.
This is what, an 8-movie franchise. It's only had 3 directors or something like that.
Exactly. And then kind of both double feature with the little news clip, and then the promoter, I can't remember his name, is like Marcel something.
Yeah, something like that.
He's a great promoter, where it's like, come on, like he, you know, talks about
he is not
the business of boxing, that it's, you know, that the Rumble in the Jungle didn't happen by accident. Like, people like make these special events happen, and you need to play along with it if you're going to be anything in this profession. Like, there's been 74 like heavyweight champions.
People
How many?
Know like 5.
Yeah.
I love that. It's interesting because this is one of the first times we see a promoter in one of these fights that isn't skeezing on the Rocky / Creed side. Like, he is kind of like, you get the feeling early on that he wants Creed to whoop him. He wants Creed to win this fight because he wants to tell the story. But the fact that he does that while also kind of like bringing Drago to the forefront, like he basically is using him as a sacrificial lamb, and that's kind of skeezy in that regard. But it's one of the first times that like we don't have someone like preying on the Rocky side of the fight, because the previous fights were all the other promoters were kind of like, nah, man, like you're easy prey. That's why we want to fight you.
Yeah, because like even in like the first movie, it's like, oh, like Apollo picked him. Like, look at this guy's nickname. Like that'll be like a really cool promotion. And and then the whole the super fight too naturally happened because of the split decision situation in the next one, and then Clubber Lang called out Rocky, so there wasn't really a promoter in that one, and then the whole Yeah, definitely not the worst promoter in the franchise. No. It didn't try to do any shady things to get them to fight. It just really told them how it is that our profession has to have some theatrics to it, or otherwise it's boring. We're not going to fill seats with basic fights.
Nope.
There needs to be some kind of a spectacle.
There has to be drama.
And then I like even though we did gripe about the location of the training montage, just like the brutalness of what they had to go through kind of reminded me of a lot of the training montages in Rocky Balboa, where it's like, okay, you can't spar because you're too old, so we're just gonna have to get you used to like being like a brute force.
We're gonna basically build up your strength and let you take punishment.
And so, in this case, it's like we're gonna punish you until that you can barely stand, so that you can withstand trained Drago.
Yep. Which is cool. I like that they're basically like cracking him with medicine balls like all around his torso, and some of his other physical training is basically CrossFit. So, because that's working out nowadays.
And then the actual final fight between the two opponents, I thought was really good. It did not end the way I thought it would.
No.
I did have a strong feeling that, of course, because of the structure of film, and then when they play the swelling of the original Rocky theme, but redone for this movie, like he's going to win, but I did not see it coming the way that it did.
Yeah.
But the fight was very gritty, and I felt very nervous the whole time.
This is, for me, one of the best final fights in almost any Rocky movie, because there is so much emotional weight to this fight, because you care about literally everyone involved. Because you're from the beginning of the movie, you're like, well, yeah, Drago was kind of like, yeah, he lost, but he shouldn't have gotten the treatment he got, and Victor doesn't deserve the kind of treatment he's getting. And so you kind of like, well, I know Creed's going to win, and I want Creed to win, but kind of want Victor to win too, because like this kid's really giving it his all. It's like Clubber Lang without being a jerk.
Yeah, like he actually wasn't like a bad person. Sure, it's like he broke Creed's ribs on purpose.
Yeah,
but he was listening to what his dad said. Can't help it.
He swept the leg. But yeah, this was such a good fight. I think tearing up some of this fight because it was the emotional weight was just there. It was very present. So yeah, totally.
All right.
Time to check in with the chat. As I said earlier, Randall joined us. He's got his day. He's enjoying one of the days he has off.
Nice.
Let's see. Randall says the more he thinks about this movie, the more he loves it. Very true. I'm kind of in the same boat. Tom Zambino says he knew the second he walked out how much he loved it. Halfway through, he knew how much he loved it. It just hit very hard emotionally, probably the most in the entire franchise. And I don't think we would have had that if this wasn't Creed versus Drago, which kind of hammers home what the promoter guy was saying, that like, you need that drama. Like, I think that was kind of a joke that people were talking about when the first one came out. Like, oh, when is it going to be the son of Drago versus the son of Creed? Things like that.
Or like, when's Clubber Lang's children going to show up and try to fight Creed?
And everyone was joking about it, but no one was saying it like negatively. Like, this is like the kind of stuff we love. Like, I joked about it whenever we first started watching Rocky, but the Rocky franchise is like American shonen, where it's like, you have Goku as a child who grows up to be Goku in Dragon Ball Z, who has a kid named Gohan, who, then Gohan's kids are adventuring, and you're just like, this is like this legacy of adventure, and you love it, and you want to see more of it. It's like non-sci-fi Star Wars, basically. Let's see. Randall says definitely one of the best stories told in the series. Very true. I think because we get to see the story from both sides.
And I saw a comment somewhere. I can't remember where I read it, but probably on Twitter. It elevates Rocky IV to a better movie, like by proxy.
Yes, it's true. There's some stuff I've seen on Twitter showing love for this movie. My favorite personally is Nick Mundy, who said Creed 2 is a great movie. Please don't make any more.
Yeah, I would be fine if they didn't make any more. If
this is where Rocky, the whole series ended, I would be happy. Because what other stories do you have left to tell other than trying to make your own story? But
we saw, once it got past like Rocky IV, and then how unmemorable those other opponents are. So
yeah, the most memorable thing about Pretty Ricky in the first Creed is that look over his shoulder when Creed gets back up from straight unconscious.
Well, and he was pretty rude, but then at the end, he would prove to be a nice guy.
Oh yeah, but he's passionate.
But barely anybody remembers Mason the Lion Dixon and Tommy Gunn. We only know those names right now because we've seen those movies recently.
Also, we like to make fun of them.
Yes, because they're so lame.
Because that's almost as bad as a non-memorable villain as a villain that's just not fun. Or antagonist. None of these guys are villains. They're antagonists. Let's see. Tom Zamino appreciated my coming out singing and swinging. He also thinks the disqualification from the first round was cool because it shows that there are rules in the world of boxing and Rocky.
Yeah, so even though structurally it's very similar to Rocky 3, except without a ridiculous opponent at the beginning, like they actually do different things with it. Like this is the first time that we've seen a disqualification and a throwing in of the towel.
Yep. Which is, again, pretty nice. Let's see. Randall says he would have been upset if they didn't do the disqualification. Yeah, if they went with the whole Drago wins, now Creed has to retake his title. That would have been it would have been eye rolling. So this is a really good way that they went with it. And Tom Zambino thinks that that final fight was the best in the series so far. I'm inclined to agree. There is definitely some that are as good, but this is like a very impressive fight to watch, and it has that emotional heft to it. So all in all, this is probably one of the best in the series. What's our next round?
All right.
Round 4, most important scenes. Ding, ding.
All right, so when we see that Drago has shown up at Adrian's and the hostess is like, he says he'll know you, and he's like, is that you? It's like, duh. He looks exactly the same.
He just grew some facial hair and lost a little weight. And he hasn't actually lost that much weight. He's just...
they just put some bigger clothes on him.
Yep.
It's like, yes, it's him. And they have like this whole conversation and like, oh, I see you have all this memorabilia up. Why don't you have anything from our fight? It's like, I don't like that fight.
Yeah,
like that fight was a trash fight, basically.
Yeah.
Because it was, to avenge someone's death. There was no honor there.
Yeah, it wasn't a fight of sport. That fight was which it is when you think about it. In the world of Rocky, Rocky ended the Cold War with that fight. So like, why isn't there something up there, like a newspaper clipping of the after events of the fight?
Maybe he really didn't end the Cold War after all.
Oh, no.
They just pretended to be nice. And so they have a really good and poignant conversation about, like, Drago's held this grudge for 30 years, and Rocky's like, well, that's in the past. It's like, for me, it was yesterday. Like, you don't understand, like, what my life has been like. I've lost my family and my country. My son only knows like fighting and like
fighting in pain.
And my boy will break your boy, and then basically like Rocky says something about like mutts, and then Drago and his son leave because the son shows up too. But this definitely kind of sets up that the pain that Drago has gone through, and also the ruthlessness that he still has in order to, hurt Rocky.
Rocky has a really good statement in this movie too, of like, this guy's got nothing, and when you have nothing to lose, you fight like you have nothing to lose, and this is really driven home by this situation right here.
All right, let's look at the next one.
Yup.
All right, and then when Creed agrees to fight Drago, he and Bianca have like a huge talk, and then she's like, well, like, I thought you got all that stuff out of your system, like, why do you need to do this? And it's like, well, if you didn't have your music, like, what would you be? You wouldn't be good to anybody if you didn't do what you loved. I'm not good to anybody if I don't do what I love, what's inside of me. And so a very poignant scene between the two of them about why he has to do this.
Yep.
Why he needs this. And so in like the first fight, it's kind of like for all the wrong reasons.
Yep,
and then,
which is why he gets royally whipped.
Yeah, he gets in his own head because, Rocky abandons him because he can't stand to lose.
He doesn't want to see him.
His surrogate son, basically.
Yeah.
And his mother's not behind him. And so, like, Bianca's kind of behind him, but, like, you really feel like she would rather him not.
Yeah.
And so he just feels like he doesn't really have anybody. And, yeah, he lets it get to him. But then in the second fight, he knows why he's fighting.
Yep. This was, like, the one big dialogue that they have, these two characters, Victor and Ivan. However it's pronounced.
In Russian, it would be Ivan, and that's how Dolph Lundgren says his name in interviews. So I'm going to go with Dolph.
That's fair. But this is the big actual, I think the only real major dialogue they have, and it's when they're at this big dinner party after the first fight.
Yeah, and they're like back in Russia. Everything is opulent. This is the first time that they're like, seen in a nice place.
Yeah.
And then who shows up?
Ivan's wearing like this really ill-fitting nice suit, but it seems like it's way too big for him, and that, again, you had said they did that on purpose, but yes,
shows up his ex-wife.
Yep, the former Mrs. Drago.
And it was the actual actress, Brigitte Nielsen. I was so shocked to see her. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, it's nice that they held that away from the. I mean, it's not like it really needed to be in the trailers, but it's really nice that they didn't spoil that in the trailers for us.
Yes, I was shocked to see her as well because she's Stallone's ex-wife. So,
and I don't think it ended on amicable terms.
Probably not.
Rarely they do.
But his son is like, "Why do you want these people's approval? These are the people that threw you away.
Yeah.
Like, why do we care about this? I don't understand."
Yeah, and it's true, and that's when your heart really kind of hurts for the kid because he's really only doing this for his father's approval and love.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about all the stuff that Yvonne cares about.
He doesn't care about, getting in good with their home country again. And so this is probably what sets it in Yvonne's mind that, maybe things are not as great when the people are trying to court your favor that threw you away in the first place.
Yep.
And then I didn't have like a real picture, so I'd steal one from Rocky IV.
Yeah.
So she shows up to the fight with, like, I guess her new husband, which I don't think is supposed to be, like, the same guy from the fourth movie or anything.
No, but you get the impression he's like a politician or an oligarch of some sort.
Some kind of, professional dude.
Yeah.
And, she's seen with him. He's a very important guy. And so they're, like, watching the fight. And then when it's clear that Yvonne is up against the ropes, or not Yvonne, Victor. They leave. They just up and leave, and there's this really sad shot where Victor sees that they're gone, Yvonne sees that they're gone, and like your heart breaks for them. Yep. Because like there she is, like a fair weather mother, just like leaving when things aren't going well.
Yep. And like Victor is like, no, I'm still gonna fight. I'm still gonna fight, but his heart's not in it anymore.
No.
And that's when Yvonne,
Yeah, that's when. So this is to represent the throwing in the towel because you really get that scene because it's a new movie.
Yep.
But you can definitely see like there's a turning point in the way like he's talking and treating his son, and then when his son is up against the ropes, you see him like rounding the corner, like waving the towel to throw it in because
everything kind of goes slow motion. The sound gets a little muted when this is all happening, and
it broke my heart to see him throwing in the towel because. Like this is like the beginning of a change between these two, their relationship. Like you feel like it's there's gonna be some healing done after this. It's not gonna happen overnight because the abuse has been ongoing for decades. Him raising this child, but you feel that they finally broke his spirit. Like he's never going to win the favor of his country again.
And I think at this point he's like, and I don't care.
And he doesn't care
because he doesn't want to see his son take this kind of punishment anymore. Because it probably feels to him as though he's the one dishing out the punishment. With every punch, it's actually him. So, but yeah, it was impressive and powerful. And again, like you're like, I don't want Creed to lose, but I don't want Victor to lose either. Yeah, Victor's giving it his all. So. All right, checking in with the chat again. See, Tom Zambino says seeing Drago's wife back was pretty cool and made the end of the fight even more powerful. Yep, like we were talking about, it made that scene like when they showed up and she had that smug look. And he's like, "All right, we're gonna win in front of her. She's gonna be proud of her son." Because I think that's part of it too. Is he wanted to try and like win mom back for the son. Maybe not for them to be a couple anymore, but maybe, I don't know. Drago's probably very, very old fashioned. Yeah, because
we always thought that their marriage was a marriage of convenience, and I think it's very clear that it was. So she just left.
Yeah, but I don't think it was as much to him.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily like a romantic relationship, but I think it was kind of we're on the same team. And,
he obviously cared more about her than she cared about him.
Yeah. The moment where Yvonne is hugging Victor and saying, it's okay. Yeah. Tears. Tears. Just tears. Never thought we'd see that kind of emotion out of the Dragos. Just brilliant way for their story to end the film. I loved that the last scene of them is him running down the same street, but it pans over and he's running next to him.
Yeah, instead of chasing him with his truck, his van.
Yeah,
when I say run, you run faster.
Yeah, that was powerful, and it was kind of a moment like I'm not trying to make you do something like this anymore. We're just gonna live now. If you want to keep boxing, you can keep boxing.
We're gonna live our life in the Ukraine.
Yep. Maybe they should, go work at Adrian's like every other old boxer and Rocky and others.
Oh yeah, they just show up. It's like, what are y'all
doing? Clubber Lang's outside,
Spider's still there.
Oh, I miss Spider.
I miss Spider too.
Yeah. So, got more?
All right, we got themes.
Ding. Round 5 themes.
All right, so one of the themes, of course, involving Rocky and Drago, the fact that you may be the hero of your own story, but you're the villain in someone else's story. And
which is a fantastic theme.
So Rocky is the villain of Drago's story, and he must have revenge. And so it's kind of an interesting turn on the whole relationship as well.
Yep.
I like, even as much as I was disappointed in Rocky 4 because I built it up so much in my mind, this definitely lived up to and exceeded my expectations. I enjoyed this immensely, and just this idea, as we stated in the important scenes, that for Rocky it was yesterday, but Drago's been living with this loss for 30 years.
Yeah, or for Rocky it was like that was so long he didn't care. But Drago, it never stopped.
It never ended for him.
The humiliation. He still feels the fall of the mat and things like that.
So I liked that, the exploration of that theme.
Yep.
And then, of course, the sins of the fathers.
One of my favorites.
And then how the sons have to, play out in that scenario.
To live up to that legacy, whether they want to or not. It's almost like it's not like Creed is like trying to live up to his father's legacy anymore. That was the whole theme of the first one, but it's always the ghosts of the past that come haunt us again and force us to like deal with crap from 40, 30 years ago. I think at this point it's almost 40.
Yeah, it's like 33 years.
Yeah.
And then even little Duke is involved with it too, because Duke was the trainer of Creed, and so they're all having to live with the sins of their fathers and
the events of the past just creeping up and haunting them. in general, fatherhood's rough.
Yes.
Missed circumstances and missed opportunities. Don't do that.
Yeah, you don't want your children to make the same mistakes that you do, and Rocky embodies that perfectly as he tells Adonis about, like, your father, died in my arms. I regret every day that I did not throw in the towel for him, because he could still be here and be with you, and all of those kind of things. And I don't want you to make the same mistake that I did. I was supposed to fight Drago, but he wanted to, and I let him down, and I don't want to let you down. Additionally,
too, this is whenever we find out that he's a grandfather now, and all that other stuff. He's like, and I haven't talked to him in forever. You would, if anything bad happened, you'd be leaving Bianca behind, you'd be leaving me behind, your mother behind. It's kind of Rocky's just seeing like this over and over again, and he probably hurts. So yeah.
And then later on in the movie, when they do make up, because there's like a big deal earlier about you were fighting for the wrong reason, and now you're fighting for the right reason, and then kind of takes back to some things that Adrian had said I think in Rocky 4 about, like, you didn't win because you were like the best, you won because you had the biggest heart.
Yeah.
You had the most heart.
Didn't you find a fun little fact out about biggest heart?
Oh yeah, like in Rocky 4, he got punched so hard by Drago or Dolph Lundgren that his heart swelled literally, and he had to go to the emergency room.
Yeah. So biggest heart. But yeah, that's a prevailing theme, is the right reason. Because anytime Rocky loses, it's because his head wasn't in it, his heart wasn't in it, he wasn't there mentally, emotionally, and physically. But sorry, one of our cats is like going crazy playing right now, and it's precious. But anytime that he's like, no, I got this, and like his heart's actually in it, he tears face. Like the Clubber Lang one, it's not just training. It's that he wasn't underestimating his opponent. This wasn't a joke anymore, and all that jazz. So that's all.
Yeah, and then same with the Drago fight, because Drago had some size on him and reach on him, but he was still able to win because he knew he had to persevere. So yeah, having your head in the right place, having your heart in the right place, doing things for the right reasons.
Yep.
And I think that's
it for that. So before we get on to awards potential, I'm checking in with the chat, but it doesn't look like there's really anything added in there. Yeah, there's a lot of important weight to this film. We've only watched it once. Most of the time when we review a new movie, we get to see it about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I know Ant-Man and the Wasp was twice, and like Infinity Wars was like 3 times before we talked about it. But this one we only got to see once, and it's been a hectic weekend.
Yes.
So
we're doing the best we can.
We got this, though.
It's hard.
Our heart's in it. We're doing this review for the right reasons. Ding, ding. Round 6, awards potential.
All right. So we felt that Michael B. Jordan would definitely, even though he didn't really get anything, Golden Globes or Oscars before, maybe this time, especially with some of the speeches he has in the movie.
Well, and some of the back and forth he has with like Tessa Thompson and stuff like that, them showing their relationship that strongly really helps the acting upscale potential type situation.
So we hope that he will have some nominations, because they did have a lot of like Critics Association nominations, especially from like different African American critic bodies. But Stallone was the only one in the last round in Creed to get nominations for like Golden Globes and Oscars.
Yeah, which he totally deserved one for Rocky Balboa. But yeah, Tessa Thompson as well. She's fantastic in this. There's a massive emotional scale that they both deal with in this film.
Yeah, especially in that scene where they're holding the baby and they're doing the little hearing test and just like the tears.
Yeah.
Because
the fact that they don't say anything, and you get to see exactly what's going on through their emotional state is phenomenal. And, we think he deserves it.
I really think that out of everybody, he would have the strongest potential to get some kind of a nomination. Even though it is rare for an actor to get nominated for a character they've played before, it can happen. But just all the emotional stuff that happened in this movie, and this is a huge comeback for Dolph Lundgren. It's been a while since he's been in a theatrical movie. I think the last thing he was in that was big was probably The Expendables,
the third one.
He's had quite a storied career, but a lot of his career has been in direct-to-video and streaming movies. He's had a very rough life. He got immediately typecast because of Rocky IV. And then of all the trauma of his childhood and his youth, where he had this escapist nature, where it's things are going well. Now I've got to run from it. And he did a lot of self-destructive behaviors, but now he's really getting his life back on track. Yep. And so I'm hoping that this will garner him some kind of a recognition, because he is a really good actor.
He is, and it's one of those situations where he this is the first time in a very long time that he has not done just an action character role. This is a very dramatic performance for him, and it's uncommon to see that, and it's a really good one. Probably because he brought something very personal to it is a very heavy reason why it's so impactful. Tom Zambino doesn't think it would happen, but it'd be really cool if it did.
Yeah, I mean,
we want this.
We want this. If it were going to be anybody, it would be him. Even though Stallone is not bad, but I just don't feel like there's enough emotion. Even though there are some emotional things in this, it's nothing compared to all the stuff that happened in Creed
and Balboa.
And if he didn't get any nomination for Balboa and how amazing that was, I just don't see a chance of that happening in this movie.
In an ideal world.
And then, because as much as awards don't matter or whatever,
what do they do to these people?
Yeah. It's based on the movie that you were in, not the body of work, and so I just don't see it just based off of he didn't have as much.
It should be about the movie you're in and not the body of work, and that's what the Lifetime Achievement Awards are for. Honestly,
which I'm sure Stallone will get one of those eventually.
Yeah, which he totally deserves one.
Yeah,
if he hasn't already gotten one, he deserves one. He is a phenomenal overall. Yeah, so I think the music, the scoring in this movie, all these movies have fantastic musical scores and are handled very well. But some of the music used in this was so good, and I think it deserves some sort of nod for that kind of stuff, for some of its musical. Mm-hmm. Basically, very, very in general, technical work for this movie is phenomenal. The cinematography is good. You pointed out the coloration usage, the
point of view shots.
The point of view shots. Another coloration usage we didn't talk about, when they're at the dinner party, everything is dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there's lots of lighting and stuff, but everything feels like a shade darker than it needs to be.
And it's very sinister too.
Yeah, it feels like there's a cult activity happening there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're gonna raise Cthulhu.
Totally should.
All right.
That's talking. All right, so closing. This movie's great.
Yeah, I would say this is definitely up there as one of the best, not maybe 100% the best, but one of the better movies in the franchise. And Creed's definitely 2 for 2 on, good movies in its section of the franchise, where Rocky is about half of them are good.
Yeah, there's a better ratio among the Creed movies than there are among the older Rocky movies.
Yeah.
Tom Zambino says the way they were able to riff on some of the previous movies and music. Yeah, using the original Rocky, theme, Flying High Now, and that final fight was just it's full circle and stuff, and it's so nice, it's so cool. I'm crying. I'm literally crying because of this fight. This is a fantastic movie. I am agree, what we talked about earlier with some of the commentary on this movie about how this is a really good movie. Don't make a third one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of in the same boat, but at the same time, I would like to see a Creed movie that isn't really fully in Rocky's shadow.
Yeah.
That doesn't have something to do with a previous Rocky movie beyond the fact that he's just Creed. I'm not sure it would be, I don't know. I'm sure it would be good, but I don't know if it would have the weight. So, because that's what these movies kind of rely on, is that emotional core.
If they go with the tropes of the franchise in the third movie, your trainer dies. So, Yeah, we don't. I don't know if we want to go there.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll ever do that.
Yeah.
That I think they talk about that would happen at some point, like Rocky would die at the end of one of the movies.
I forgot which one.
Was it 5?
Yeah, I think he was supposed to die in Rocky 5.
And they're like, no, that's not what Rocky's about.
Yeah, the studio wouldn't let them do that.
So, fun story. The first 20 minutes of this movie, I wasn't 100% sure Rocky was still alive. I kind of thought they went with a not that he's a ghost, because that was still gnawing at the back of my head from the whole, like, well, let's make Mick a ghost thing that they talked about doing for one of the Rocky movies. But no, for me, this was he had passed, survived chemo or didn't or whatever. And now this was like Creed's internal, like, coach kind of situation. Like, whenever you hear that cheesy line in every movie, like, I'll be right here, I'll be with you always. Like, he is, you know. Sometimes that's how we feel. Like, when we need that motivation, we hear the voice. I think they did that in one of the other Rocky movies after, I think it was in Rocky 3, after Mick passed away. He still heard Mick's voice help him get up or something like that. And I think that's where my mind was. I'm like, oh,
yeah, because you don't see Rocky right away. He's in the shadows.
Yeah. Well, and then like up until like, I want to say Bianca says something to him. Nobody, like, and this is after the fight with the Wheeler. Up until that point, later on, you kind of get the impression like no one's looking at Rocky, no one says anything to Rocky but Creed, and like, is he even really there? I hope they're not doing that. If they do that, that would make this so bad.
I did not get that at all, so that's definitely all you.
Yeah, that was me. But then, like, I think it was before the hospital, before he fought Victor, that he was like, that there was some back and forth with one of them where, like, his mom mentions Rocky called or something like that. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm reading too much into it.
Thinking that he was dead.
I forget where the turning point was in my mind for that, but like there was a good portion of the time that, like, is Rocky actually dead? Oh no. God, is Rocky actually dead?
That'd be horrible.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been so bad.
It was just like this imagining Rock. It's like, what are you doing, Adonis? Who are you talking to? Don't you remember?
Yep.
And then it's like flash to the cemetery.
Tom Zambino says, second favorite in the franchise so far. Only reason I don't think it's better than the original is because most of the emotional weight is based on you being invested in these characters already. And yeah, that's true. And that is the only downside to this movie, is the only reason it's a good movie. And the story of Adonis and Bianca starting their family and trying to figure out what they're fighting for, that's really cool. But everything else about this movie doesn't matter as much as the fact that Drago's there. Like, that's what makes this movie as heavy as it is. But that's fine. You care about movies like Infinity War because of the characters in them. Like, you give a crap that Gamora dies in Infinity War because you've had 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies before.
Spoilers.
Oh my God. Really? Loki in the beginning of Infinity War with that neck break, you're like, he's survived so much, only to have Thanos maybe kill him.
Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, it's the same thing. Like, that's the only thing that matters about it, is not only thing, but that's what makes it such a impressive film. So we have been talking for a while now. We got one more thing in the pipe for Rocktober. We plan on recording a small video this week. Probably should only be about 5 to 10 minutes long, just depending on the situation.
You know how wordy we are.
We try not to be. But this episode is roughly an hour long already. So,
and it has the least amount of footage.
It does. The least amount of, like, everything. But that's fine. We are going to rank the Rocky movies and talk about, like, some fun stuff involved. Things we thought about, things we liked, disliked about the franchise as a whole, that kind of stuff. Nothing long, a little short. It'll pop up on the channel eventually. It'll be at the end of all these reviews. But we are coming to that time of year where we don't have nearly as much of this kind of stuff going on. We have one book club coming up next week, I believe, over To Kill a Mockingbird. We'll be doing that one live instead of just releasing it. But we have it next week. So, yeah, join us. Same bat time, same bat channel. And we'll be talking both the book and the movie, To Kill a Mockingbird. If you haven't read the book, That's fine. Still join us for a talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen the movie, you kind of know the base principle.
Yeah, you have like the rough idea of what the book's about.
And I think you can see the movie in a lot of places. Like it's somewhere.
Yeah, I think it used to be on Netflix, but I don't think it is now.
I'll share a link.
All my students are sad that it's not because they want to watch it.
That's fair. And then we'll be talking about that. And then we have Streamsmas coming up. I'm almost done with school for the semester, and we're going to do a lot of streaming. Yeah. That's been our coverage of all the existing Rocky movies. We're going to talk. The next live Rocktober coverage is going to be talking about all the Rocky spoof stuff, like all the Family Guy jokes. No, we're not doing that.
No.
We may talk briefly about it, but.
Yes. This is the last official episode of Rocktober that's live.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for this trek through all things Rocky. We have enjoyed it immensely. This is our first time watching these films, and it's been a big deal for us.
Yeah.
We'll see you with the other video.
Bye.
Bye. Click the button.